guest speaker also. So we'll go with the flow. You know how it is. We never know what happens at our quarterly meetings. So, but welcome all to our second quarter. I cannot believe it's already almost the end of May of 2023. How did we already get here? I would love if you would introduce yourself in the chat. And today our icebreaker question to learn a little bit more about you is, what is your favorite treat? What is your favorite treat? And this can be any kind of treat. I'm food centric. I've always been food centric. My husband laughs at me because it'll always be, what treat is Angie bringing home today? When anything happens, it's always like, ooh, can we get ice cream? Can we what can we bring? So what is your favorite treat? Ooh, Carl, mocha almond fudge ice cream. Dr. Pepper. Ooh, when I stopped drinking soda, I was on diet Dr. Pepper, and not a big fan of diet sodas, but diet Dr. Pepper for some reason tastes exactly like regular to me. Chips and salsa, spicy salsa. Ooh, orange creamsicles. That brings me back. That brings me back to being a kid. Potato chips and ice cream. Ooh, together, as in, would you dip them? Is it kind of like having French fries and Frosties? Because yum, I will go for French fries and Frosties like any day, all the time. Nerds gummy clusters. My kids love those. Chocolate chip ice cream. French fries. So when I was pregnant with my youngest, who is now 11, our totally craved ice French fries and barbecue sauce, specifically from McDonald's. And luckily we had like a McDonald's right next to the place that we lived, and I would literally send my older kids at like 10 o'clock at night, can you just run to McDonald's real quick and get me an extra large fries and a couple sides of barbecue sauce? So I feel that. Strawberry shortcake, I love it. I love it. Popcorn and gummy candy together. Ooh, Karen, that's amazing. Anything chocolate. Yes, peanut butter pretzels for me. Ooh, Jessica, I just bought the Reese's peanut butter cup dipped pretzels. I should not have done that because those things are absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. Oh, fries dipped in honey. That is great. Well, we are still waiting for our guest speaker. However, is Leslie here? Did I see her come in? She is. Leslie Anway works for the Pima County School Superintendent's Office, and she has an opportunity to share with the consortium. And I wanted to make sure before she had to leave this morning that she was able to share that with that consortium. So Leslie, do you have a minute to come off camera and just share the opportunity?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Angie.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to share, I wanted to put this out on everyone's radar. In October, October 27th and 28th, we will be hosting a resilience summit. And the intended audience is any educators, any educational staff, but we are still looking for, and I'm going to put in the chat, I'm going to put a save the date flyer, and on that flyer, there is an embedded link. I'm still looking for a few breakout proposal speakers. So if you would like to present on anything related to resilience, to a lot of my work is in the area of coordinating all of these proactive frameworks of support, trauma responsive, social emotional learning, all of those things. And so anything in those areas, looking for breakout speakers. And I know this audience is a great one to put that out to. And so I'll put that link in the chat. We do have a couple wonderful keynote speakers, national keynote speakers, and Kathy Hoffman, our former superintendent, will be doing a featured speaker address at the summit. So it is going to be a wonderful summit. It's going to be at Star Pass. It will be in Tucson. And so I would just say, put that on your calendars now. And I'll also put the link directly to the breakout proposal form as well. So just wanted to get that out there to this group. So thank you, Angie.
Thank you, Leslie. Thank you. And we will, of course, will have all of those, the links and PDFs and things like that, that'll go in the follow-up email. Sorry, I'm just trying to email our guest speaker to see if she has the link. We're still letting people in. All right. Okay, well, we are going to move forward. I know that some of our committee members might not be. So let's do the announcements first. I don't want to hold you all here longer. If we have to flip up the agenda, then so be it. So some of the other announcements is we do have our trauma sensitive school symposium. This is the 7th year doing it. We're partnering with ASU. ASU is that main host. And this year we're also partnering with the Arizona School Board Association. And our goal for the symposium this year is really to show, like, we all know that trauma sensitive practices are something we would like to see in all of our schools, right? We've been having this conversation for years. And once we learn, right, that trauma impacts behaviors and all of those pieces, the next question is, okay, well, we understand that, but like, how do we do that? And what does that look like within our school system? And all of our schools are so different, right? Whether we're in a rural area, we're in an urban, suburban area. And so our goal for the conference this year is to really look at what does this look like in practice? And we have it from every level, from the educator staff level to principals, to superintendents, up to school board members. And we really kind of looked at having all of those aspects represented and what that can look like. So the symposium is no cost for educators. It is June 6th, 2023. And you can use the QR code there to register. Otherwise, I will put the registration link in the chat also. And here is the information for registration that Leslie just, oh no, that I have your link, Sandy, for the next one you'll go to. I'm going to pass it over to Sandy to talk about our Resilience Empowerment Project. You've all heard about our project in Maricopa County, but specifically just kind of giving you an update of where we're at and what we are looking for if Sandy is ready.
I am ready. Thanks,
Thank
Angie.
you.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. So we are wrapping up our first school year for the Resilience Empowerment Project. It's been a crazy, wonderful learning year. We are excited that we have all but one of our schools returning for level 2 for next school year. We are in the process of recruiting new level 1 year 2. I have to, like, my brain kind of frizzes out because academic year versus calendar year. So level 1 year 2 schools. And we are almost full. We've got a handful of spots open. Our interest last year centered primarily in Central Phoenix and the East Valley. So we've been really doing some targeted recruiting out in the West Valley, looking to help try to expand throughout Maricopa County. This is funded by Maricopa County Department of Public Health. And so we are restricted to schools within the Maricopa County boundary. So that's what's happening with the schools. If you know any schools that you think we should be reaching out to, please shoot me an email. We'll be happy for those connections. Our community organizations training, we are in lots of conversations. The community organizations are youth serving, either direct service or indirect service. It's a 4-hour training. And so the schools is obviously more extensive and expands throughout the school year. Community organizations are a four-hour training. Also includes opportunities to connect through community of practice. So if you're interested, or if your organization is interested, or you know of an organization you think we should be reaching out to, again, shoot me an email. We have our youth training. We've done one with schools with a school, and Jessica Flowers has contracted. Many of you probably know her, contracted with us, and she's done several of these youth trainings targeted on adolescents. So we're looking at roughly 6th grade up to 12th grade. And so we are looking for organizations, and we have been talking with our level 1 schools that are moving to level 2 about who might be interested in adding the youth training at some point next school year. And then it became apparent as we had conversations, as we started to recruit community or started to talk with community organizations, that there is a special population of group home organizations that need a different level of support. And so what we have to offer is a group home training, and it would be a series. Angie, my mind is fritzing, so if I say this wrong, let me know. 3 separate 1.5-hour trainings. And simultaneously, we would have group home staff being trained at the same time the youth are being trained through our youth curriculum. So what we found with the youth training that has been extremely powerful is when we are connecting with the adults, and the adults are aware of what the youth are learning, and they can talk in the language that the youth are learning through this training, it is incredibly powerful for those youth to have these adults supporting them, and they're all speaking the same language. Actually, I don't want to call you out or single you out, but Carl, your face is on my screen right now, so I'm looking at you. So I will be in touch. And there is the link there on the screen for the project site on the ACES Consortium website. So, did I miss anything, Anne?
No, that
Okay.
was great. Thank you. And for the youth specifically, we're looking at out of the box ideas. So everything is open. We know it's always hard to bring programming into schools. Not only do, the kids just getting time and space during the school hour is really difficult. So if you are a community organization that would like to host the youth trainings, the youth are 3 trainings, 3 sessions for an hour. Each for them, and we would love to kind of think outside of the box. So if you have any of those kinds of ideas, you as an organization, or organizations that would like to bring it, to open it up to the community, those are all ways that we would love to bring this training out. The youth training specifically comes with a stress and resilience journal for our kids, that they can make their own resilience plan in it. It's really experiential. It's very hands-on. And so we have a couple different ways that we can go about doing that. So thank you, Sandy. And you can always contact any of us for questions about the program and what that looks like. I'm also going to give this one to Sandy to talk about the 2023 TBI Summer Conference.
So this, for those of you that either watched or attended, I think it was this is May, the April, was it April? What a previous
It was in March.
A previous trauma sensitive schools work group meeting. Tiffany Wilkinson and Dr. Sue Wolf presented on the impacts of COVID on neurobiology, neurology, all of that, the brain. And so they are hosting a virtual summer conference. It includes, you'll see the cost there, May 31st, June 1st, June 2nd. Those are all Arizona times. It includes professional development. So you have the opportunity to get professional development credit hours. I was going to pull up the, so they have 3 tracks: therapeutic interventions, alternative complementary approaches, and cutting edge up-to-date topics. So that's the general, you know, kind of their track. So I was trying to find the professional development. I want to say they said it was 10 hours, but that might have been in the email, and I'm just looking at my flyer right now.
It is, it's on the
So-
bottom of that flyer.
Oh, is it? Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Right in the big bold print. Okay, so 10 hours of professional development through ADE. That's all I have, Angie.
Thank you, Sandy. No, that's good. And I put the link for the conference in the chat also. So this is a save the date. It's hard to believe that we're already saving the date, but for our 10th annual ACES summit that we have. If you've been with us for a while, you know that we have gone from a half-day summit, you know, short piece, to now I like to just kind of incorporate it all in 1 week. And so this year we are moving back to December, the first week of December, December 4th through the 7th. We will have, as we did last year with the medical provider conference, and we're also going to incorporate a resilient schools conference. So just like the trauma sensitive school symposium that's in June, where we talked about, you know, our focus is really on lived experience, what this looks like, how we apply it, you know, kind of what it looks like in action. We had that conversation of like, we need more than just one touch point in having these conversations. And so we will have a dedicated time, either the 4th or the 5th. We're just still looking at what that kind of scheduling looks like, for specifically resilience schools conference piece, which of course will be open to everyone that joins, but really be kind of educator and education focused for it. For the medical provider conference, we've discussed that we will have 2 different levels. So for those of you who attended our medical provider conference last year, like even us lay people were like, wow, that was really great information. And I learned a lot looking at that biology piece and what that looks like. So we will have a level 1, and then we will have also a level 2, where it is that like, okay, so what does all of this look like in action specific to medical providers? So we'll have those pieces. And then the summit itself will be that 2-day piece on December 6th through the 7th. Our theme for this year is creating connections. So we really wanted to look at, you know, like what does this look like, right? Like we all know that ACEs and trauma and all of that have this huge impact. We also, you know, understand the impacts that the pandemic has had on us in society. We're incredibly disconnected. I don't know if you all saw the Surgeon General came out, I think it was about 3 weeks ago, that talked about the epidemic of loneliness across the United States. And so, you know, what does connection look like? We had what connection was before, right? We're starting to lose it, but the pandemic really kind of took us off the rails and really became incredibly even more disconnected. And now we need to learn what reconnecting looks like and what has changed within connection. A lot of us have gone way more virtual. That is more, you know, comfortable and safe to us. It's also helped us reach a lot of people. But what does that look like in this virtual space, right? And so really just kind of focusing on that, creating those connections and those healthy spaces. So save the dates. Registration won't open until, I think like October, but we are already working on our keynotes and getting all of those in place where we go. So just kind of wanted to give you all a heads up on that. And now we will go to our community, our committee updates, committee and partner updates. As we still wait, I hope our keynote can get here, but understand life happens at times. Jennifer, I think I saw that you were here. Would you be open to doing the trauma sensitive schools committee update?
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. So just a brief update on the Trauma Sensitive Schools Committee. Throughout the first half of this year, we really focused on getting feedback in January from our attendees on topics that they were wanting to learn more about. And then from that, we've built a lineup of presenters from February on through the end of this year, actually, that can kind of meet some of those topic requests. So we're going to actually have our final presenter and presentation from ASU coming up at the beginning of June. And then we're going to break for summer. We're just going to break 1 month. So we'll be off for July, and then we'll come back into it with a kickoff for back to school starting in August. So August and September is going to be a 2-part kind of a mini series that's going to highlight and go over some of a more in-depth training that actually Carl Johnson will be doing on self-awareness and also around trauma and the invisible backpack and those needs that students bring into the classroom, as well as some of the needs and kind of what we all might bring in as educators or professionals that might also impact the dynamics in a classroom setting. So that'll kind of kick off the school year, bring us back in, and then we're going to transition into the last couple months of the year where we're going to have Elaine Rankin from Northern Arizona, who's trained on the neurosequential model for educators. So she's going to be doing a 2 to 3 part series on the neurosequential model and the implementation of that in more of a classroom setting as well. So we're really excited to kind of kick off the school year once we get back from break and bring some of those tools and resources to the classrooms. And then we're also going to then be seeking out feedback from the group for 2024 already, and trying to get those presenters lined up for next year on different topics that many of you or others that you might know would want to see. So with that, I do want to put a little plug that if you are interested, we are still meeting the first Wednesday of every month from 4 to 5:30 virtually. And if you know anyone that you feel would benefit from those type of topic areas, please feel free to direct them to either myself or Angie, or go online to register to participate. And we're always here for any questions, feedback, or ideas. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Jennifer. And reminding everyone that all of the replays and the links, PDFs, and the slides and pieces are on our committee page on our website. So if you, for a lot of the committees, we have just a specific work page for them where they can put the recordings and those pieces. The trauma sensitive school ones is the most update, and all of the recordings are on there. Our last presenter that we had in April was a community school model that was absolutely amazing, the work that is being done in some of our Tucson districts. So if that is something that interests you, Jansen shared his slides, and the recording is there and everything. So yeah, we've had a lot of really great presenters. Thank you, Jennifer, for putting those all together for us.
Yes.
All right, our rural committee, it has been on pause and hiatus because honestly, I didn't have the bandwidth and space to be able to consistently keep up with communication. We just most recent, within the last 5 minutes, finally have a chair for the rural committee. So it will start up, I'm assuming, sometime in summer. We know that June and July is real difficult for us people in Arizona. For some reason, everything is always gung-ho, and then June and July, everything slows down and comes back comes back up, but Renee Redday will be the chair for that that committee. Super excited about that. Sabrina was not able to attend today, but our communications committee has been putting together our newsletters, and they do like a 2-month newsletter. Our June, July one will go out at the end of May. They are currently working on creating a calendar of upcoming posts to be put on the social media platforms, trying to bring as much awareness to ACEs and trauma-informed care as possible. They are always looking for new members. If you would like to join them, I will put Sabrina's email address in there for you to contact them. Their next meeting is they meet on the first Wednesday at noon, and the next one is on June 7th. So that is our communications committee update. Sandy, would you like to give the training update?
Sure. So the training work group, I think I've mentioned this before. We did a trainer survey, a certified trainer survey in February. What came through loud and clear, a couple of things. But one of the things we've been working on is folks are talking about, Andrew was just talking about connection, talking about wanting more in-person opportunities, more opportunities to gather and be with other trainers and talk and all that sort of thing. So we did a test and learn in-person gathering in Central Phoenix. And I haven't seen Jeremiah on login yet, but Jeremiah Kaplan from ASU CERC hosted it downtown. We had, I think, 7 folks showed up, and we just talked about, you know, gathering and what was important. And so what we learned from that is, you know, looseness is important. We're not looking for these gatherings to be incredibly structured unless that's what the group wants. So we're putting together a loose gathering guide that's flexible, that just sort of at least gives folks a place to jump off, but not restrictive, or it's not something that has to fit a certain mold. The underlying feeling is that we are, you know, touching in with that grassroots foundation of the consortium where we started. So that's the majority of the work that the work group is doing. If anyone is interested in joining the training work group, and again, our focus this year and going into next year will be on how we can support trainers with ongoing education. We hear a lot of trainers want to connect with other trainers, to observe, to just learn from one another. So if you're interested in that, we meet the second Wednesday. Wednesday seems to be a popular meeting day. We meet the second Wednesday of every month. Our meetings are virtual, so it's on Zoom. And just in full transparency, we try to do most of our work during that meeting time every month, but we do occasionally ask our work group members to do a little bit of work outside of that meeting time. So if you are interested, shoot me an email. I'll go ahead and put my email in the chat. We would love to have you on board. And I forgot, we have June TOTS coming up, Train the Trainer. So in June, we adjust our training of trainers for educators who might want to go through the ACE training. So it is 5 sessions spread out over 2 weeks at the end of June. So it's a little bit more compressed. For those of you who are trainers, certified trainers, and are interested in helping us with breakout rooms, we are looking for help for breakout room facilitators. One of the pieces of feedback we get from our training of trainers participants is how enriching it is to be in those breakout rooms, interact, but how important it also is having someone facilitate that. And so, and Angie, are you putting the sign up genius? I can't find the link. So if you're a certified trainer, if you're interested in helping us out with the Train the Trainer, would love to have you.
I will get that link. Thank you, Sandy. I just got off the phone with our guest speaker today. She thought it was at 11:45, so she's taking about 10 minutes to kind of regulate and come into this space. So we will finish up with our committee and our partner updates, and probably do a little bit of new business if anyone has some, and then move on to our guest speaker. So thank you as always for being patient and flexible and all of those pieces with us. Sang-Hoon, are you in a space that you can do the update for the Interfaith Committee and the Arizona Trauma Informed Faith Community?
Yes, Angie, can I
Sang.
share my
Screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Am I on? Okay.
Yes, you are.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Sang-Hoon from the Interfaith Committee. Yeah, I'm sorry, several months I was not active, and this month kind of busy. I cannot help Angie and Sandy much about training and the conference coming up as I'm going to abroad. But today I'm here, so I'm glad. So our interface committee, I just want to say that please email me, which has been done that way. So whoever visit our website, it shows, I think it's the second Tuesday, but we regularly meet first Friday, 8 a.m. In the virtually. But the problem is we have right now about 8 people coming most regularly. So each month we kind of make a change to make as many as members can come up together. So usually first Friday, but it can be also second Friday. And we just finished our May meeting, and we're gonna resume in August. So it can be August the 4th or August the 11th because there are a couple of people that can make August the 4th. So I'm sorry that we cannot definitely give you the right time at this point, but appreciate if you can email the facebookcity@gmail.com. And we have been doing that podcast, first season of Facebook City podcast, which was a collaboration with the ACES Consortium. It's 11 episode. So it's done. And another plan was we want to do the interface workshop or breakfast. So it's still in the planning stage. And in the collaboration with ACES Consortium, Angie, thank you that let the word spread out. And we did a conference. So the Facebook City got the grant award from the County Public Health and to train the faith communities with trauma-informed care lens-based substance use prevention. So we made community of a belonging project curriculum. So we've been doing all the work in the community to train the faith communities. And in the middle of that, to build the momentum, we did a conference May 4th. So the conference name is Weaving Cleave as kind of a first type. I've been doing the Resilient Church Conference with a Pure Heart. But from this year, collaborating and sponsored by County Public Health, we did a conference with the guest speakers. The keynote speakers were there. And also we awarded 11 faith-based organizations who've been through that our Belonging Project training. And also we are continually following the building up. So why belonging? Because we've been discussing nationally maybe many years, still we don't have an answer. What's the right word? Because people don't want to talk about trauma, and we talk about resilience and hope a lot. And nowadays some people talk about belonging. So I picked up belonging because in the brain science, yeah, just basic knowledge that sense of belonging bring the safety in our system, and which is the most foundational recovery baseline for the trauma recovery. So we try to build up the whole community gonna have a safe space. All the congregations, not only just the recovery group and certain group or self-help group, but we can make a safe space. We can share our struggle together safely. So nobody feels like I have to be perfect to be part of the congregation, or I'm not the only one to struggle. So with all the kind of a reduction of a harm and a reduction of shame and then stigmatizations, we do the project training, 6 hours in training of trainers. And so 11 organizations have been through the training, and we continue follow up to work with the head pastors or imam or other faith-based directors to work on their faith community. And we had the breakout sessions. I acknowledge Marsha as a founder of Consortium, and also she brought trauma informed community, faith community now coalition into to our region here in Phoenix. And just there's a Carol who was also a breakout trainer for substance use. And I just want to emphasize this. We had a panel discussion for those who've been through that Belonging Project, but also we had an interface discussion about the Belonging Project. I think Jeremiah was here, one of the panel. And so representing Buddhism and Islam and also Judaism and the Hindu. And so we have a 5 faith community come together in a panel discussion. I'm telling this because they can be kind of a precursor of what we want to do if we have that ACES Consortium Interface Committee kind of breakfast or a workshop. So the conference was successful, and the Maricopa County Public Health staff, with a shift in other programs, we really kind of enjoyed and very grateful for those who collaborated together. And also, we have Tucson region as well as the Phoenix regions. And in Tucson, you know Robin Blumenthal. So please email her if you want to be part of the Tucson region. Our Trauma Informed Faith Coalition meetings is the third Thursday. I'm sorry, third Thursday. Actually, now it's going to happen, and Rick Griffin is covering the Tucson meeting now. And also, Tucson has also its own conference. Has been about 4 years, and this year, the Reclaiming Hope Conference, which is our Regional Trauma Informed Faith Coalition conference in Tucson. It's gonna be September 8th in 2023. So just save the date. Yeah, so as I said, the journey on faith communities and resilience of agents of change. This is the first season of episode of ACES and the faith movement. And now we started a new episode of Weave and Cleave. And we got 6 episodes out. The last episode is Jesse Kohler. Because he was our speaker he came from DC as executive director of a CITIP, and we had we just uploaded and pushed out that podcast recording with Jesse. So you can try to find the Facebook City or Weave and Cleave or Journey On Faith Community, and you can find our podcast series. Again, I want to emphasize that please email me that if you have any questions and want to participate. Yep, and thank you so much. If you have any questions, please put in the chat or let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, Sang-hoon. Always love seeing what you're doing. If you're new to Sang-hoon, he is literally the busiest person I have ever met in my entire life. And even his chances of slowing down, his slowdown is probably busier than most people that I've seen, and the amount of work and the amount of connection that Sang-hoon has created across the communities and across the state of Arizona has been nothing short of phenomenal, watching it happen. So if this interests you at all, I can guarantee that Sang-hoon has created that safe and open space for everyone to join. So yeah, that's all. All right. Hillary is here with our Southern Arizona Trauma Informed Network. Hillary, do you have a chance to give an update on the amazing work that you all do in Southern Arizona?
Sure. Am I able to share my screen?
Yeah, let me stop.
Did that pop up for y'all? Oh,
It's working. It's
okay. My screen froze at the same time, so I had that
it's here now.
palpitation there for a second. Okay, so since we all met a few months ago, we have been working on our 2023 training schedule. This month we had Rick Griffin present on the predicting brain and why that matters. We had about 250 participants from across the country. Obviously there's a focus on Arizona, but as we have gone online, we've seen that participation grow nationally and internationally as well. So June, the training is on compassion fatigue and self-care. What's exciting about this one is that this is actually a training we've developed internally that can be offered sort of a format training or something that can be offered, and you'll get the same training no matter which of our trainers offers it. So that's with Sarah Moody and Serena Samaniego, who are two of our long-term SAT members. And then we'll take the month of July off and move into the summer and fall months with trauma-informed motivational interviewing, as well as the other ones you see there on the screen. Over the course of the last few months, we got notification from TAP AZ, which is an arm of Vitalist, that we were accepted as a project. So we're continuing to move forward with our plan to become a nonprofit, which is exciting. That has opened up some other opportunities for us. Like all of a sudden we can have a website and pay for some admin staff hours and those kind of things. So that's really exciting and feeling like a great opportunity for us. So we're really excited about that. One of the big things that's happened in the last month or two is that Circles of Peace in Nogales reached out to us and said that they were interested in creating a training series of their own. They have some grant dollars, but they didn't really know how to get started or who to connect with. And so we've been sort of mentoring them and moving into this work and being able to provide trauma-informed trainings and resilience trainings for their staff, but also for the community. And then the last thing that I wanted to share is that we have a focus this month on our Facebook page around mental health awareness and the intersection between trauma, trauma-informed care, and mental health. And so that's given us an opportunity to kind of spice up our Facebook page and provide some new interesting posts for our membership. So that's what we're working on. We are always looking to build our general membership. We meet every other month on the first Monday of the month. If anybody's interested in participating in our general membership meetings, let me know. And then because we're doing this project with TAP AZ, we've formalized our leadership structure and have a chair and co-chair and those kind of things. And we're meeting on the weekends to support people's work schedules and their ability to participate in our new formal group. So I think that's all the updates I have. Definitely reach out, email me or chat with me if you have any questions.
Thank you, Hillary. I love seeing all the work that is going on in Tucson. I am going to move to the new business slide. I am on the phone currently with our speaker, trying to get her into this meeting. So if anybody has new business, please feel free, if you have trainings that are upcoming, if you want to announce something to the consortium, if you have a question for some of the members that you'd like to get assistance on, please feel free to come off mute or put it in the chat. But I'm going to hold this space while we try to get our speaker all set up. Really, all you're telling me that with 60 people here, you all have nothing going on? Nothing at all?
Sorry, my name is Andrea Joshpema. I'm from Hopi Behavior Health.
Thank you.
We just scheduled an ACE training with Navajo County to bring to Hopi, and that's scheduled for Thursday, June 15th from noon to 4. So we're excited about that to see what the turnout is going to be. Thank you.
Thank you. Virginia or Renee, do either of you want to share the exciting news that's going on in Coconino County?
Angie, sure. My dogs are growling in the background. I can't, hope you don't hear them. We just received, the Coconino Coalition for Children and Youth received a $175,000 grant from Vitalist Health Foundation. And so we're really excited to partner with the city of Flagstaff and the county of Coconino to be able to create trauma-informed and resilience systems-based change and policy change at both those entities. And we're also thankful to the consortium for being a partner on that project, and Angie is serving as a partner. So thank you, everyone.
It's not necessarily my news, but I can share that the Children's Advocacy Center in Pima County, they have a license to show the film Resilience. And so they've been doing several community screenings. And in September, they're actually going to rent out the loft and show the movie so the community can see it as well. And I'll try and get some information on that and forward it out to Angie. So anybody who wants to participate can attend.
Thank you all for sharing as we figure all of this out. We know that Zoom likes to do updates, and we've had quite a few people that have had issues trying to get in today, but she's working diligently. So in the chat, Christina Lombardo talked about that she's given a speech about growing up with living with PTSD and CPSD. She said this would be a great organization to look into. I appreciate that. Fantastic. Andrea said that she'd love to participate in the resiliency showing, so we will work on getting that link for all of you.
You know, Angie, this is Jill.
Jill.
As Sandy mentioned in her report, I was one of the 7 or 8 people who came together as a community gathering. Actually, we met downtown, and it was, even though there were just a few of us, it felt wonderful to be together, to hear what everyone was doing, what everyone's concerns have been throughout the pandemic, and now the resulting sort of anxiety that kids have in schools when they come back together, and what all of us feel when we come back together. But it was very joyful. And so be looking for opportunities. Sandy will be sending it out, or maybe Angie, you will, the opportunities to really start in your particular area around the state, to start bringing those of us together who are really passionate about training this information. So it was really easy. It was joyful, and we can't wait to do it again.
This is Patricia Miranda, work for Chicanos por la Causa. We keep on training, and we're going to be training our in-house coordinators, specialists, June the 16th, and getting them all aboard with the trauma informed. So this is something that's going to be happening in-house. But I have another question, if I can piggyback regarding the flyer that was shared on the link with the Save the Date Celebrate Resilience Summit. That's going to happen in October. I'm not able to print it out. Is it possible? Can it be shared again, but in a way so we can print it out and share it? Because it's not even allowing me to save it as a PDF document. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. And yes, absolutely, we can share it. We almost got her logged in. So I appreciate everybody filling space. And I also love hearing about everything that is currently going on across Arizona. One of the things that we are also working on, so if anybody has connections to it, or if you've done it, in our Arizona Health Improvement Plan, the Pandemic Recovery and Resilience, we have a mental health and trauma IPT meeting that happens now. It's happening quarterly. But during the summer, we're working on a community of practice playbook. So we know that having communities of practice on mental health and well-being is one of the pieces that that our professionals and communities have asked for. But we also know that there's special considerations that we have to really pay in mind, especially when talking about mental health and well-being. And we're looking particularly at our youth mental health, right? Everything is so geared to crisis these days. We know how bad our youth are struggling, right? And so what is that kind of prevention pieces looking at? But we also know that everybody has been doing a lot of great work across Arizona in doing listening sessions and focus groups, and really have looked at what does the current status of our youth mental health look like in Arizona. And so this summer, what we're doing is we would like to do listening sessions with organizations and people who are already have done it. So we can work on more data sharing and bringing that data together with everybody that has been doing the work. So things are not so siloed. So if you are familiar with groups that have been doing focus groups, listening sessions, or who are really plugged into that youth mental health across Arizona, we would love to connect with them and just kind of learn from them of what they have learned and how we can really connect this information and data.
Just in case the chat has been scrolling too quickly, Andrea put some information. I don't know, Andrea, if you want to come off mute and talk about what you put in the chat, the program flyer and reference sheet?
Sure, I'm happy to do that. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I don't know how much time I can just give a really brief. I don't want to be talking while our presenter's ready.
I think Angie would welcome a little fill space as we work with technology, which always provides us opportunities for learning.
Okay, sounds good. So I'll just give a quick update. I'm Andrea Altamirano. I work for the Pima County Health Department in a program called Community Mental Health and Addiction. I'm telecommuting, so I don't have my webcam right now. But our program offers a number of services to Pima County residents, so I thought I'd share our program description. We have a wonderful, amazing group team that works together. We offer chronic pain and self-management trainings, Narcan trainings. We do a 1-hour presentation on how to administer the nasal spray Narcan. We're also distributing it amongst or within our community at local libraries. We're working on a project to try to get Narcan out at local bars, anyone who will really take us and put up our flyers and information to distribute Narcan. We also offer question, persuade, refer, suicide prevention trainings. I'm certified in that training as well and offer that throughout our community. We have been offering more trainings in person, which I totally prefer as well. And it seems like a lot of community members are looking for that more and more now too. They're trying to return back to the old days. We have a Strengthening Families program that's an evidence-based family skills training program that is offered usually on a monthly basis. We have to send invitations out to get our families engaged. I'll read what it states. It's an evidence-based family skills training program found to significantly improve parenting skills, family relationships, social competencies, and school performance, and to reduce problem behaviors, delinquency, and substance misuse in children. SFP is a multi-week curriculum for parents or guardians and their school-aged children. And what's really popular about the program is that they offer weekly incentives and like a graduation gift that's provided. So it's a pretty cool training that has been pretty successful in our program. And then I'm a mental health first aid lead for the youth and family trainings. We've been working with another program. This is the cool part, is that we have a lot of Tucson Unified School District health nurse assistants who've been trained. We've offered 4 train the trainers for youth mental health first aid. So we're really trying to grow mental health first aid in our schools. I'm hoping eventually we can bring the Lady Gaga Born This Way Foundation teen mental health first aid into Tucson. That's a huge thing, lots of requirements, but those are one of our goals. We also, of course, offer the Ending the Silence through NAMI, National Alliance on Mental Illness. We do some presentations on the rise of fentanyl, and we've been recently kind of combining both of those presentations with the Narcan training, which have also been really successful. And then we have 1-hour presentations that we offer for stress management. And then I just wanted to thank you. I will be participating in the ACES training in June. I'm really excited about being able to offer that to our community as well, and hoping we can continue to partner. The mental health first aid program with this new Train the Trainers. I think we've got over 50 new trainers now in Pima County, which is awesome. And yeah, just hoping to grow the program, and thank you for having me and for that scholarship to take that training. I appreciate it. Oh, I forgot to mention the other attachment is a crisis guide that we offer at most of our just any events that we have outside in the public, and also in my mental health first aid trainings. And it's a crisis reference guide that we created that just basically has all of our crisis lines and information. cool thing about it is that when you open the PDF, it's interactive. So if you click on any one of the agencies that offer crisis information, it takes you right to that website.
That is awesome. Thank you, Andrea. Well, we figured it out.
Yay.
We have thank you all for sharing all of the amazing things that you are doing. And we really like that anyway, right? Like we're like, oh no, there's no one else that are, doing these things. And then we come to find out all of the pieces. And I see that Tammy put an Eventbrite link in the chat also. Okay, so there was lots of stuff. I'm going to give Nicole like a second to actually kind of decompress and regulate, and we made it. And we all have a nice, I don't know what the word is, appreciation for Zoom updates that like to just change things on us randomly. Sandy's laughing because her and I text about this regularly. Like, why aren't the Zoom updates things that we actually have asked for? But anyway, and before Nicole presents, I do want to give a kind of regulation space for all of us, right? We will be talking about heavy topics. Child sexual abuse is never easy to have a conversation about. We all have our own emotional stories and attachments to people that we've worked with, community stories, all of whether that's your own story or not. And just want to, give that permission to you all to do what you need to take care of yourself, right? If at any point it becomes too much, please don't feel like you have to stay in the meeting, right? This is recorded. You can always go back and hear the things that you've missed, if that is the thing, but just know that we would love for you to take care of yourself and use whatever regulation skills that you need. And Nicole, I will pass it over to you. We are really excited to have you here today and talk. And I'm going to stop sharing. If you have more than welcome to share, if you want to just keep it the open meeting piece, whatever is most comfortable to you.
I'm going to keep it I'm going to keep it exactly the way it is because as I was speaking to Angie, I just join meetings. I don't usually have to schedule or run them. And so I have a very new appreciation for everyone that does. I think you all are amazing at that part of it. So I'm just going to take a minute. If anybody needs a copy of the notes that I'm talking about, I'm happy to, I've sent a copy to Angie. I'm happy to send them to whomever. And I just want to say thank you so much for having me. My name is Nicole Lowell, and I am a mom, and I have children who I discovered right now. My children are 26 and 17 and a half, and it's only been about 5 years, I think, since my oldest child disclosed, and 4 since my youngest disclosed. And in 2014, my husband was arrested for online child pornography, and it wasn't until later that my children disclosed what actually was going on with them. And to help with everything that I've been going through, I looked online as soon as I found out everything. There was so much information for survivors, and that's great. But what I struggled to find was information for parents who were going through helping their children through this. And so I created a podcast. It's called Through the Undertow, and that's THRU, Through the Undertow. And through that, I interview mental health specialists, and I'm working on interviewing organizations that help. Eventually, there'll be people in the legal field and the justice field, because it's a very complicated, complex situation that involves a lot of different systems. And I wanted to come today. I'd reached out to Angie and just said, if you ever wanted a parent's perspective, I'd really love the opportunity to come and speak with y'all. And thankfully she's given me that chance. And, what I'd like to say is that depending on where you look, there's different stats in different places, but it's anywhere from literally 1 in 10 to as large as 1 in 4 children that are sexually abused before they reach 18. And I have to say that based on the things that I've seen and read and heard, I really do think it's closer to the 1 in 4. And I think that that's a really difficult statistic to really think about, that literally 1 in 4 children is sexually abused before they reach 18. And I think we don't talk about it enough, and we kind of put it under the rug. So, the reality is if there was ever any health situation that came up, that was 1 in 4 children were getting this particular health condition, we would have so much, money given over to that research. We would have so many doctors trying to figure out a way to heal the kids and whatever going on. And because of what it is and the nature of what it is, we very often don't even talk about it. And I think that's a great disservice to our children. And the other issue is that most children know who sexually abuses them. They're sexually abused by someone that they know and trust, a parent, a friend's parent, someone in the church, a coach, a teacher. It's just always someone that they know and trust. Sometimes there's even sibling sexual abuse involved, and also sometimes it's just other children that are involved. And I think that creates even more complications that we as a society just aren't really prepared to handle. And I think that there can be difficulties in identifying children that are sexually abused. First and foremost is that, and I feel like it's kind of a unique thing a little bit to sexual abuse, is that they're groomed. Children that are sexually abused are groomed ahead of time. So there's a lot of they don't even know oh, well, I agreed to it, or, oh, there's a lot of manipulation going on. And so they don't even realize that what's being done to them is wrong and bad. And I think that makes it really difficult. And I think that the other thing is that, currently our society tends to attribute bad behavior just to bad behavior. We don't really attribute bad behavior to trauma or to trauma responses. And I think that becomes, it's really bad. We tend to label children, based on that bad behavior. We consider children that lie in one area as liars. And especially when it comes to them blaming someone else. If you had a kid who was theoretically really well behaved in your classroom, and another kid who wasn't well behaved in your classroom, and the kid that wasn't well behaved in the classroom came up and said, so-and-so did this to me, I think most of our natural inclination is, yeah, whatever, kid. No, they didn't. I don't, especially if that other kid is standing over there going, I don't know what they're talking about. I didn't do that at all. And I think that that's a disservice to the children that are struggling. We often don't stop to consider why a child is behaving the way they're behaving. We just look at the behavior instead of saying, this kid is behaving poorly. This kid is off the walls. This kid is lying all the time. This kid is pushing and shoving and whatever. And it's our job as parents and caregivers and supporters to be able to say, whoa, let's take a step back and just look at what they're doing, and then try and figure out why they're doing it, instead of immediately going to punishment or, some form of, if we don't know why they're doing something, we can't really change that behavior. I feel like bad behavior is really kind of a symptom of a problem. And if we don't know the problem, then we can't really solve the problem. And especially when it comes to trauma and trauma responses, you can't really adjust the behaviors without healing the trauma. That becomes really important in order to, to adjust the one to be able to help the other. And I think that we also don't stop to consider why children are introverted or shy, or, why they're anxious. We just say, oh, they are. And oftentimes we even allow those behaviors to become very stressful. And like, again, we're judging them, and it's difficult for us to handle their anxiety or their shyness or whatever. And I think that, again, I feel like as parents and caregivers and supporters, we have to look at behavior as, it has to be almost an investigation of, okay, well, what's going on? Okay, well, why are they doing this? What's happening at home? Have there been any changes? Has mom or dad met a new person? Has a new friend come along? Has maybe somebody else in the household started behaving in a different manner that you're not used to? And maybe there's a connection there. And I think that unfortunately we let our preconceived notions get in the way often of our unbiased judgment. And that makes it, that's really a disservice to the kids. In the end, they're the ones that end up suffering because we do that and we don't take that step back. And I think there are some things to consider when looking at children that you're interacting with. A child that discloses is very, very rarely lying, even if they lie about something else. I think we have to keep that in mind and remember that. Most children don't have any idea. So when they're saying stuff, they don't know how to lie about that. They don't have the mental capacity to understand that kind of a manipulation. And I think that when we, I think the thing that we have to remember is, especially when it comes to that sexual abuse and honestly abuse of any kind, more often than not, a person in power over them is telling them to lie, is teaching them to lie, and is making them lie about various situations. So for them to lie about other things is actually not surprising. It shouldn't be surprising to us at all. So to me, it's almost like a kid that lies a lot is a tell of, why are you lying so much? Like, who's teaching you to lie? What exactly is going on here that you're going to lie about this? And we have to figure out why they're doing that. Because children don't, I don't know that children lie ever, to be honest, until they're taught to lie. Children will say things not understanding that it's a lie. When you look at them and say, you put your hand in the cookie jar, and they're like, no, I didn't. And you're like, I just watched you do that. I just watched you put your hand in the cookie jar. They're actually not lying. They're trying to avoid being in trouble. And in their brain, they don't necessarily know, they don't know what lying is. All they know is, if I say no, I won't get in trouble. If I say yes, I will. That's like, for them, it's a decision. It's not about the behavior of lying. It's only until they get older that they start to recognize what that is. And honestly, it's more often than not because we've labeled it for them and we've explained to them, you're lying, don't lie, it's not okay. So they don't really understand that. So I think explaining to children what lying is important. But equally important, there's even more things going on there. A predator grooms their victims. But equally important, they also groom their character witnesses. And I think that's something that we forget. How often in our society do we see the people that are the most shocking are the ones that come forward, the ones that get caught? There's a reason why it's so painful to us that people in church are the ones that are accused, because in a million years, we would never suspect them. And that's part of it. Those people that do those behaviors know what they're doing, and they put themselves in situations where they're surrounded by people every day that they can interact with in an appropriate fashion and become trustworthy with, so that whenever their victims come forward and say, so-and-so did this, it's no different than the kids in the classroom, and the kid in the classroom that behaves very well and the kid in the classroom that lies all the time. And they know that ahead of time. I'm going to prepare my whole entire case going forward so I can do whatever I want and nobody will question it. And they will question these people. And if you think about it, a lot of times they either pick children that are already troubled, or within their behaviors, they become troubled. And so for a predator, that's even more support. This kid is the kid that's the bad kid. This kid is the kid that doesn't behave. You can't listen to him. You can't believe him or her. And I think that it's really important that we keep that in mind, that predators are extremely charming people. You know, I have a story that, and sorry to throw this in there because we didn't really talk about it ahead of time, but 9/11 happened. For anybody that's old enough, I'm dating myself, whatever, but 9/11 happened. And I remember after it happened, my child, my son was very much like, who did it? Who did it? And he wanted to see the bad guys. And I recognized in that what he was really saying is he wanted to know what bad people looked like. Because for him, it was like, these people were bad and I know they're bad and I want to see what they look like so that I know what bad people look like. And that makes sense from a kid's perspective. But, you know, thankfully I was able to kind of figure that out, and I actually never showed him. I'm like, no, you don't need to know who did it. You just need to know that people are trying really hard to get them and get it taken care of. And I think but I really think that is us as a society. If you think about it, people are always like, who did that? They need to show a picture of it. Like, we need to whatever. And that's our way of reasoning in our mind who the bad guys are. And the other problem with that is that when you see the charming and attractive and whatever person, more often than not, your very first take on that is, oh, they wouldn't have done that. They didn't do that. And then you're hunting in the story for, where's the disagreement? Where is it? Where are you going to tell me that this person lied before about whatever? Oh, there you go. They're a liar. They're lying about this too. This didn't happen to them. This person over here would never do whatever they're saying they did. And I'm here to tell you that that's not the case. That like, if there's one piece that I could have you walk away with, it is predators groom their character witnesses just as much as they groom their victims. And I think that's important. I think we also need to recognize that whining and arguing can be trauma responses. Things that we don't typically think about are trauma responses. And I think that children arguing constantly can actually be a trauma response. It can signify that they're neglected at home, or that their parents are treating them poorly at home, and that somehow they feel like they have to provide their own needs for themselves all the time. And so in doing that, they learn to argue with people when people are telling them that's not what you need and that's not what you might want that, but you don't need it. And that's why children argue, because they're trying, in their mind, I have to take care of myself, so I know better than you do. And I think that the other thing is, when you're interacting with children, if your gut tells you that something's going on, listen to it. As a person who's been through this, there were times when things happened, and now that I have that one tiny piece of the puzzle, those things make so much more sense. And I can tell you that in my relationship with my husband, for however many years we were together, there were several times where I looked at him and I said, do you think something's going on with our kids? Do you think that, so-and-so is having something happen at daycare? Do you think that whatever? And understandably, my husband was like, oh, let's just keep an eye on it, or no, I don't think that's what's happening, or whatever. And again, my husband was grooming his character witnesses just as much as he was grooming his victims. So I think that the things that you can do to help children who might be in an abusive situation, first and foremost, is to listen and believe, and don't label. Like, I need you to understand that you can believe that a child isn't lying while simultaneously knowing that that child is also not being 100% accurate. Those two are not dependent upon one another. They can be independent of each other. And I think the other thing to keep in mind is that a child's filter and their way that they experience the world is so much different than ours. And so, and I think that we've all had those moments where a child says something and we're like, okay, I really am not 100% certain how you got from A to B, but B is not really inaccurate. It's like, I don't really get your thought process, but I see where you're coming from. And I'll give you a perfect example. I have a granddaughter who would come to visit me, and I tried to help her out to explain to her, look, you've got 2 sleeps with us, you've got 2 sleeps, and then you have to go back home. Well, then I was having so much difficulty with her going to sleep at night. She didn't want to go to sleep at all. It was really difficult. And you try all those things of like, okay, I'm just going to let you hang out in here on your own. And in my mind, I'm like, she's going to fall asleep and blah, blah, blah. Like there were so many things that I tried and she wouldn't. And eventually in just one conversation, the point came up from her perspective. And I don't remember the exact words that she used, but essentially what the point that I got was, if I don't go to sleep, it doesn't count. So all this time I'm trying to help her in a way that she can understand. And she's trying to tell me in a way that she understands, I want more time with you. And that's literally all that boiled down to. And if I just had consistently been like, you're not behaving, you're not going to bed, and was harsher with the treatment, I'm totally missing the whole entire thing from her perspective is I really enjoy time with you and I want more of it with you. And in the process of me potentially punishing that bad behavior, I'm damaging our relationship and making it where she really doesn't want to spend more time with me. And I think those are all the things that we need to recognize. Children don't look at things the same way that we do. And if we don't take the time to really listen and learn about how they're looking at things, then we're going to miss the explanations that they're giving us. I think also that to use non-judgmental language as much as possible. I think sometimes that can be difficult, especially when we're frustrated and when we don't really know what's going on. I think that another thing is to don't be afraid to state things in front of parents. I think if there's one thing that I could do over again, it would be to state in front of my husband, I just want you to know that if anybody ever touches you inappropriately, if anybody ever threatens you, if anybody ever does anything, and I don't care who it is, no matter what, I am here to help you. And please come say something to me. And it can be in front of your dad, but it doesn't have to be. Like calling out bad behavior in front of the people that potentially could be exhibiting the behavior is important. You're not being accusatory. And if that person takes it as you are, then that's kind of a red flag. What do you mean talking about that in front of my kid? What do you mean, whatever? I think that that's important to know. And I think that the other thing is often you don't recognize not just how the perpetrator is grooming everyone, but how they're also separating and dividing. My husband told my children all the time, your mom knows what's going on. Don't bother her. And at the time, I worked at a job where I had to travel. So every time I went away on work, my husband would use that as support for his lie that I knew what was going on. See, she knows what's going on and she doesn't care if she's leaving you. And I can tell you there's a story that literally breaks my heart now every time I think of it. My daughter one time said, she very much was like, I don't want you to go. I don't want you to leave. And I thought it was just a little kid, not understanding, whatever. And I said, baby, I have to go to get money to take care of you, whatever. And she said, well, your job is to take care of me here. And in the context with everything normal and fine, that's just a cute little adorable moment of a child telling their mom in the child way, you're important to me and I love you and I wish you were here all the time. And that's what I took it as. And now I see it for the cry for help that it actually was. And that's the part that becomes hard, is that, like I said, children don't, not only is their filter weird and this not weird, it's different than ours. But their way to express things is also different than ours. I mean, when you think about it, a kid says, I don't want to do that. Or you ask a kid, how are you feeling today? I'm okay. Or, like kids don't have the same grasp of language that we do. And sometimes you have to kind of hunt and ask a little bit more questions, go in a little sideways to figure out what they really mean and how they really really are feeling, and that's why a lot of times, the therapists are like, like empathy isn't a feeling, I want you to tell me, use more descriptive language. Like, are you angry? Are you sad? Are you afraid? Are you anxious? Are you whatever, And so I think trying to ask a little bit more questions, but equally recognizing when they've had enough. There are times when, especially children that are traumatized, they're probably groomed in ways where their boundaries are pushed. And so you have to pay attention to body language and everything else to say, oh, okay, what I'm doing is bothering them. And I think that equally important is teaching children about consent and boundaries. Like, of all the things that we could potentially do ahead of time, is teaching them, this is important. This is, it's okay for you to say no. And equally important, it's okay for other people to say no too. If they're wanting to play with kids and the kids say, no, I don't want to play with you, they have to be okay with saying, okay, I'll go ask someone else. And sometimes that's a really hard lesson for children to learn. They didn't play with me. Okay, but why didn't they play with you? Maybe, like, you can't take it as they didn't play with you doesn't mean they didn't like you. Like, there's a lot, it becomes so complicated and complex when you start to look at all the things of trying to help and protect children from, from potentially being sexually abused. So I think that, we just have to learn to support. And then the other thing, honestly, too, that I would say is, if you have the ability to educate parents, educate them. Because parents just, if somebody came to me and said something to me ahead of time, I would have listened. If they would have said, hey, I just want you to know that this is what happens a lot of times, I would have said, oh, what are you talking about? And I would have listened. And I think when we talk about, like, how the pandemic impacted children, and it did, holy cow, I think the equal important thing is to remember it impacted the parents as well. We are, a lot of parents are just exhausted and they don't know how to handle their kids. And I think that helping them along that road is just as important as helping the children. So that's pretty much all I have. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
So thank you, Nicole, for, well, first of all, how difficult it was. I kept going, maybe the universe doesn't want this. But this conversation, and the reason that I brought this conversation right to the consortium as a whole is, it is one of the things that we very rarely have conversations on, right? And I think one of the things that stuck out to me most, Nicole, when you were talking, is that predators groom their character witnesses as much as they groom the victims themselves, right? I think one of the things that I'd like you to kind of touch base on is dissociation.
Oh, okay.
So, statistically, when we look at the effects of child sexual abuse, specifically for females, specifically for female children, is their go-to is dissociation, right? And dissociation is part of the freeze fawn cycle in our trauma response. It's one of the ones that we very rarely talk about because it doesn't have those outward exhibitions, right? Mm-hmm. It's not that fight or flight. It's not as easy to look at. However, for the females who have experienced child sexual abuse, and if we look statistically, it is, more than I think that we know, specifically because dissociation is that go-to. And as a parent, you get to see a different side of what children typically present to the outside world, especially around authority, when dissociation is that go-to. And if you wouldn't mind touching base on that.
Absolutely. So for my experience was potentially a little bit unique. Again, it makes it difficult because people aren't able to disclose and when they disclose and what they remember and that kind of thing. My children were unfortunately sexually abused and trafficked. Actually, my children were trafficked from the time that they were probably born, to be quite honest, until my husband at the time went to jail. Both of my children have dissociative identity disorder. My son currently has over 300 different alters, and my daughter has currently over 100. And for anybody that doesn't completely understand about DID, that's an indication of a tremendous amount of trauma. I would say it's a very unique experience when you have independently your children look at you and say, I'm not so-and-so, I'm not your child. And it's their face and their body, and they're looking at you and saying that. I think the thing to keep in mind is that, it's interesting. I actually have my son and my daughter. My son's partner lives with us, and then my daughter's friend is currently living with us too. And all 4 of them have DID. I have a DID group home, very unintentionally. But that's okay. That's okay. So first of all, I'd like to say that because I even was talking to my therapist about it, and I'm like, I thought this was a really rare thing, really rare condition. So first of all, what I would like to say is it's not nearly as rare as I think people make it out to be. Not only statistically speaking, if you look at, if it's X, 1% of the population, that's still several million people, but equally important, we forget that just with many other mental health things, dissociation is very much masked. It's extremely masked. And not only that, the people who are handling it or who have it don't know they have it. It's that unique whatever of like they might lose time, but they think they've just forgotten stuff, or that maybe something's going on with their memory or whatever. They don't recognize what's actually happening. And I think that when children get into troublesome situations, they dissociate. And what I would say is, what I know to be true is that like everyone dissociates. If you're driving home and you don't remember the entire drive home, you dissociated on the drive home. It's just how bad it is. And what I try to explain to people when it comes to dissociation is, it's almost like there's 2 different analogies that I try to use to help explain it. The first is a puzzle. If you think of a puzzle and all the pieces, for someone who's like neurotypical, that puzzle is put together and all the pieces connect and there's no spaces in between. And for dissociative people, those pieces are still there, but they're like not completely connected. They're just hanging out close to each other. And that would be the different personalities, the different alternates, headmates. And that's how you recognize, and I think the way that you can recognize is honestly really mostly observing. For example, my daughter, most of her headmates are extremely young. And so when she switches, her gait changes. She can go nonverbal sometimes, or she talks in baby talk. She, wants her blankie and whatever. And again, I think the biggest thing that you can do in those situations is don't doubt, don't pressure them to be neurotypical. So if a kid all of a sudden is behaving differently in class or wherever, and I'm sorry if none of you are teachers, like it's just an analogy, but if a kid is behaving differently in class, again, I think the biggest thing that you can do is not judge them for that behavior and try and find out what's going on. Become an investigator of that's a little strange. And I actually had to do that for my daughter. My son, it was apparent that he had DID before my daughter, and my daughter was very much seemed to be those kids, one of those kids that would like watch everything happening and copy it. So when she first started showing things, I was like, whatever, like you're just copying your brother, whatever. And as more time went on, I was like, okay, well, obviously you're either a really, really great actress and we need to get you into some acting lessons, or you have the same thing going on as well. And so I think that that's the thing, is that if you can observe them over a longer period of time, maybe that behavior is going to take longer to fix, but your answers are going to be more informed. It's not going to be, and you're going to, and it potentially creates a more permanent fix. You're able to figure things out. I think that, another analogy of, for DID is, if you can imagine a car and how many people are in the car, and at any one given time, somebody else is going to drive. And so the car looks the same, but who's driving is different. And you can't tell who's driving. You can only see the car. And I think that's the important thing to know, is that everyone that's in the car is a part of that car, and it's important. And they don't, that just to give you that idea of, this is the body, and whoever's inside can get in at any moment. And I can tell you that I've literally watched my children drop to the floor because somebody decided not to take the wheel in that particular moment in time. I've watched my children get really violent because and not because of what the media portrays as that there is someone really violent inside them, but because if the last time that you came out, horrible things were happening to you, then when you came out again, you would be in some form of protective mode to not have that happen. And once they realize that they're safe and that things aren't going on again, then it's much easier for them to recognize, okay, I don't have to fight. And I think that, the best thing that you can do for children is to give them a safe space, is to make sure that they understand that no matter what's going on anywhere else, you are safe here. You are safe with me. And I think that if you can, thank you, Christina, for sharing. When I used to dissociate, I would stop making eye contact and would be argumentative and on edge about everything. I think that people become different. And honestly, the biggest thing that we have to remember is what Angie said, that dissociation is very much a part of that fight, flight, or freeze. It's a trauma response. So in other words, it's not happening because you had a good birthday, it's not happening because you had a nice relaxing day at the spa. If people are dissociating, it's because there's trauma going on in their lives, or there was trauma going on in their lives that they didn't deal with properly. And more often than not, that trauma was in the very first 9 years of their life. I believe that now, statistically, I think some of the research that they're showing now is showing that there can perhaps be situations where even when they're older, they can learn to dissociate. It's not necessarily called DID. I believe it's called OSDD in those situations. So there's still more that we're finding out about this. But I think that the important thing is that even if a child doesn't appear to be that child anymore, don't assume that they're making things up, that they're lying, that they're, pretending. And I will say to you, these are the things that drive me nuts in society today. For example, some topics that might be a little bit uncomfortable, the furry community. Okay. So I can speak, I'm not familiar enough with the furry community, except in the fact that what I can say is sometimes children that have been traumatized and dissociate actually don't dissociate as people. They're not people, they're animals, they're objects. And I think that while I certainly would never step out and say everybody in the furry community this is why it is, I also don't think that discounting that is, I think that discounting any type of society like that is really harsh and not okay. Another one that I would say is transgender. My son is actually transgender. He's female to male transgender, and my daughter is not. She's female. And I think the very interesting thing that I've noticed in my children is that more of my son's headmates are male, and there's only a few females, and almost all of my daughters are female. And I just think that that's like, there's no scientific evidence, whatever. These are just my own observations. But I find it very interesting that my son, who lives and believes and, you know, wants to be considered a male, has male headmates, and my daughter, who lives as a female, does not, or doesn't have that many. So I think that even things that we would consider to be not a part of the conversation become a part of the conversation, you know, especially when it comes to dissociating. And I think that the other thing that I would say that even that I noticed, honestly, so I actually have taken that youth mental health first aid class. And the one thing that I noticed in there was they don't really talk about flashbacks. And I think that flashbacks, I think that unfortunately in our society today, flashbacks are really associated with people from combat zones. And that's just not accurate. It's people who have had trauma and who are reliving that trauma in the moment. And I'll give you an example. My daughter had a flashback in school, and the school not only was not supportive of her, but told her to stop having a tantrum. And later on, when we were in a meeting with her team, the teacher in question came on and said, that's not like any flashback that I've ever seen. And I kind of wanted to be like, well, how many have you seen? What do you like? That's really, you're the expert now. But equally important was that the teacher described it as a tantrum. And I'm like, that's exactly what her flashbacks look like. Exactly. And if you think about it, why wouldn't they look like that? If her trauma happened when she was a child that would throw tantrums, her flashbacks would look like tantrums. So I think that that's the other thing, is that we have to start thinking about, what would a child's flashback look like? It's not going to look like somebody in combat talking about, you know, whatever army terms or military terms. That's not what it's going to look like. You know, it's going to involve their trauma, and how is their trauma, you know, how would it have impacted them? What would they do in the moment of that trauma happening? And they're going to be behaving like that in their flashback. And what I would say is, if a child is behaving really poorly and non-responsive to you, consider a flashback. Consider it. I'm not saying that's what it is, but my daughter becomes non-responsive. My son becomes non-responsive in those moments, and I have to find a way to reach them. And yelling at them is absolutely the worst thing that you can do. You know, trying to again punish the bad behavior is absolutely the worst thing that you can do in those moments. So to me, you know, two biggest things: predators groom their character witnesses. And then the second thing is, be an investigator. Be an investigator. Thank you, Joey. So what is supportive for a child if they're having a flashback? Unfortunately, it can be different depending on the child. What I can say is that for my children, a lot of times I tried, you know, the tapping method, and where I get, even if I can just get the tops of their hands, and where I can say, it's okay, you're safe. You're safe, and sort of explain the situation. You are, you know, you're at school, you're at home, mom's here, teacher so-and-so's here, just very gently talking to them, explaining to them what's going on. And, you know, you're essentially trying to ground them back to reality, you know? And it's, so sometimes that, you know, the senses of like, can you smell whatever? Can you hear the music playing? Can you hear, come back to the music playing, listen to it and come on back to it, or the TV or whatever's going on, listen to, a lot of times for my children, I sing for them, but I don't know that that would work for everybody just because that's really unique to us, So I think sometimes it's unique, but I do think just really trying to make sure that they understand that they're safe. That's the biggest part of it. And explaining what's going on. And the other reason why you want to try and explain to what's going on is there's a lot of times when my kids are having flashbacks that's their point of switching. So once they have a flashback, they come back out of it having somebody else being in the driver's seat, basically. And sometimes that's someone that we're familiar with, but more often than not, if it's based on a flashback and they switch, then it's someone that hasn't been out in a while. And the thing that you have to remember is that when it comes to DID, most of those headmates are already there. So it's not like, so we say, oh, it's someone new, but it's not really someone new. It's someone who's just coming out and hasn't necessarily been out in a while, because they were created essentially when that trauma happened. And so those things are things that you need to kind of recognize that, if, for example, if someone has behavior that looks like a flashback, and after that, all of a sudden they're behaving strangely, differently than they would behave. Unless you were like, that is not a situation where they're going through trauma right now. That is a situation of they've been through trauma. And that would be, to me, like the hugest red flag of all. What is going on with you, kid, that caused you to have a flashback in my presence? And now you're behaving differently. Like, that's a huge indicator that there's way more going on than potentially anybody realized. I think that the other thing that you have to remember is, again, depending on a child's trauma, that indicates a lot of what's going on with their behavior. If children are well, even more important is that I can tell you that through this discovery of my children, I discovered that there's a very high likelihood that I was equally sexually abused. I don't know by who. I don't have that memory of what happened or who or when or why or anything along those lines. But I can tell you that there's a difference between a physical memory and a memory. And that would be about like the only way that I could describe it, is that sometimes the only memory that you have is the memory from your body. And that's just as important to remember as any other memory. And I think that children dissociate when they're in trouble and when they don't know how to handle what's going on. It's a coping mechanism. When they come forward later on, you just want to be as supportive as you can with them and show them that they're loved and safe, and that whatever was happening during that time is not happening now. But it's also going to be important to recognize, if you don't know what was happening, you don't really want them to go back to that environment, whatever it may have been. So I think that, again, creating a safe space for the children is the most important. Making sure that they know that they can speak to you in any way, shape, or form. So if you're a behavioral health specialist or a teacher or whatever, and saying it in front of the parents, hey, Johnny, I want you to know that no matter what's going on at home or school or wherever, like, you can tell me, and you don't have to tell me in front of your parents. You can tell me in private, and I'm here to help you and to make sure that you're safe no matter what. And if the parents want to give you crap for that, then I'm sorry, but you need to recognize that sometimes kids don't feel comfortable saying it in front of their parents. And sometimes it can be because their parents are the problem, but just as important, it can be because what if whoever was doing it threatened their parents? What if whoever's doing something to them knows their parents and they feel ashamed and embarrassed and bad that so it doesn't necessarily mean that their parents are guilty, but that conversation has to be open and said in a way that is in front of potentially who could be doing it, but equally in a way that lets them know that you don't have to discuss it with me in front of them. It can be totally private. If there's a way to, have it be, you can, that they can do it anonymously. You can write a letter or a picture or whatever and put it in this box. And then you have an idea of, that something's going on. I think those are all important things to do. And I'm sorry, I'm kind of all over the place. I had
It's
some.
it's a very dysregulating topic to talk about, right?
And you're asking so many good questions, but if anybody has any more,
Yeah.
I'm happy to answer. And the other thing that I would say is just take a look for I'll even put it in here. It's called Through the.
I put it in there for you, Nicole.
Okay, good.
I had it all queued up for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah. And
Yeah.
so there's a website there. There's not as much up. What I will say is that, I decided to do the podcast, not just for myself, but for other parents, but equally important because every time I talked about it, I feel like it's like cancer. Like you talk about it and somebody's like, oh, I know that happened to my fill in the blank here of whatever, my friends, so-and-so, or my so-and-so, or whatever. Like there was not extremely rarely for me to discuss anything and have somebody not know somebody else or even have it happen to them. And so to me, it's like, well, if this is happening so much, why is this not talked about so much more? So that was another thing. So but what I'll also say is that I've discovered very much why people wait until they're all grown up or everything's calmed down or everything's better, because I feel like I'm in a tornado most days of my life. So there's not as many episodes up there currently as I would like, but I'm working on getting more up and getting more information. And equally important, I would say that if anybody wants to potentially discuss a topic, if they have a topic that they want to discuss with me for my show, there's a way that you can reach out to me, and that's totally fine as well. So
thank you, Nicole. I really appreciate you having the vulnerability and openness to come in and have this conversation with everyone. You can see in the chat, there's, quite a few like, thank you for having this conversation. It's not pretty. It's not a feel-good conversation, right? It feels icky because it is incredibly icky. And there are just a lot of children and adults. And what we have to remember is, you've all heard me say this before, but I'll repeat it as many times as I need to, is adults are just children who've turned 18, right? And until we have mitigation into the things that have happened as children, when we're looking specifically at child sexual abuse, typically that stuff doesn't even come to the forefront until adulthood, right? Because we cannot come to a space to talk about it until we're safe. And a lot of times that doesn't happen in childhood, right? That is going to happen. So how does all of this information, right? Understanding how prevalent dissociation is has an entire spectrum, right? From dissociating because, you're driving, you get there, you're like, oh, did I, what just happened? That's all of us. Listening to me talk at times, probably dissociating when I'm repeating myself and you've already heard it, right? That's a normal thing that our brain does, all the way up to dissociative identity disorder. But in between there is PTSD, is CPTSD, is, OSDD, which is other specified dissociative disorders. But dissociation is a cornerstone, right, as a trauma response. And how Nicole talked about flashbacks and body memories and things like that, that it looks different to us than what has been shown to us. And so I'm just really, thank you, Nicole. I know that we are coming to the last couple minutes. I appreciate everybody hanging in for the full 2 hours and the patience of getting Nicole onto the
thank you so much. And I apologize. Woo, that was
no worries.
Definitely a workout first thing in the morning.
And into the meeting. So if anybody needs anything, these conversations can be very activating. We are always here. Please reach out if you need anything. Please take a few minutes before you go into your next meeting, before you go into work, whatever that kind of looks like. If you will please just take that time and space for yourself in whatever that looks like, to ground yourself back into the present. So that question from Joey is, what do we do during a flashback? We ground them back into the present, right? That this is where the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 exercise comes in really handy. You know, what are 5 things you can see, smell, hear, feel, like all of those pieces, to remind ourselves that it is May 18th, 2023. And what happened then is not happening now, right? We are in this space. So thank you all. I appreciate all of you. You know that I will send recordings out and all of the links and information that has been shared. And we look forward to seeing you all for their next quarterly meeting, which is August something. I have it on a slide, but I'm not going to look it up. It is August 17th. And I hope everybody enjoys the rest of your week. Thank you all.